Hello, I wanted to share my testimony of how I came to follow the Lord. I believed in God as far as back as I can remember, growing up in my home. My dad would, teach me about God, and we went to a church every Sunday, and I always believed in the Lord. When I was 7, I was walking through my living room and I just heard this voice in my head that said, "You need to be baptized." And the voice, sounded like my own voice in my head, but it was an outside thought, a thought that didn't come from my own consciousness. And I immediately began to argue with the voice, and I said to myself, I will get baptized when I'm older, because I was only 7 at the time. And immediately responding to my counteracting thought, I heard, "No, now." And it was a very firm correction, and I knew that I had to obey the Lord, that He was telling me to be baptized at that time, regardless of my age. And so I approached my parents, and they agreed to let me meet with my pastor. And I spoke to him about my understanding of the Bible and grace and mercy, that Jesus died for my sins, that I can be saved. And the pastor had agreed to baptize me. He felt that I understood what I was doing, and I can speak now, at my age, being 40, that I did honestly believe and know what I was doing at 7. And so I was baptized at that time. Um, Now, a little history of my story is that I did grow up in an abusive home. I don't want to go into the details of that, uh, but just to know it was a trying situation. Many years in my young adulthood and childhood were challenging, trying to overcome the adversities that came with dealing in that environment. And I used to pray to God to deliver me from my situation. I spent a lot of time praying for God to save me. And in my mind, I thought God would somehow just remove me from my household in some miraculous way. I don't really know how I expected Him to do it, but I was expecting something physical to happen, where I would be, somehow my situation would be magically changed and I wouldn't have to deal with this environment anymore. And that was my expectation. And I kept praying this, and as my situation didn't change, I would cry out to the Lord. I used to go behind our garage and I would pray there, and I would sing worship songs there, and I would sing and pray, and I would speak to the Lord all of my difficulties and the pain of my situation. And I did this often. This was a part of my life. And then there was a period of time where I became kind of in despair. I was feeling like nothing was changing. I felt like my prayers weren't being answered or heard. And I began to just feel like I questioned if the Lord was hearing me, or maybe He was hearing me, but He just was choosing to ignore me for some reason. And I began to believe that the reason God wasn't answering my prayer was because somehow I was eternally damned. I started thinking maybe I had committed the unforgivable sin, and maybe the Lord wouldn't answer me or hear me, or maybe He was just ignoring my cries because somehow He wanted me to be in this situation, or I deserved it somehow. And then, thinking about that, pondering about it, I decided that what if, everything I was doing still wasn't good enough? And I began to feel like, even if I had come to this realization that even if I was eternally damned, that I would still worship the Lord, because He is everything that is good and lovely and beautiful in this world is the Lord. And it would be better to walk with Him on earth for as long as I could, just to be near Him. I would give up everything, and I would walk near Him even if it meant no heaven. Um, so I began to cry, and I just again felt overwhelmed with depression and despair, and I fell asleep. And when I was sleeping, I actually had cried myself to sleep that night. And I had, I believe, a spiritual dream at that time, that evening. In my dream, I was behind my garage where I worship and pray, and I was singing to the Lord and worshiping and praying just as I do and it had done in real life. But in my dream, I was in that place, and all of a sudden, the sky opened up, and this golden light with sparkles were coming from the sky, and the golden warm light from the heaven had poured down on me as I worshiped and prayed, and I saw this heavenly light like shining on me. And as I prayed and sang louder, and it was like this light enveloped me, and I felt this immense feeling of love and completeness. And then as I continued to sing, I began to hear music coming from the heavens of the angels, and it was covering me. And this mighty wind, very powerful, was blowing on me, and I grabbed onto the lilac branches that were near my prayer spot, and I held on to the branches, and the wind was so strong that it swept me off of my feet, not in a scary way, but in a powerful way. And I was holding on to these branches, and I felt the wind flowing over me in a marvelous way, and my feet were, I was horizontal to the ground, and I was looking up to the heavens of the light, but the light was so bright that I couldn't look at it. So I was kind of like holding on and like looking away, and just the feeling of the music and God's light shining on me was so strong, and I just felt enveloped in love. And then I heard the voice of God say to me just these very simple words that were so powerful: I love you so much. And then the wind died down and the light faded, and I kind of glided back down to the ground gently. And the moment passed, and then I woke up, and I was crying because I thought, oh my gosh, I heard the voice of the Lord. And even now, I'm 40, and this happened when I was 7. I just remember the Lord's love that He has for us. And He's not forgotten us in our situations. And He knows what we're going through, and He cares. And God did not immediately deliver me from my situation. In fact, I was into my teenage adult years, 19, 20 years old, and I was still wondering why the Lord hadn't changed my situation and changed the heart of the people that were in my home situation. And the Lord told me that He did save me, not by the way that I expected, but that He preserved my heart. He protected my heart from being hardened. He protected my heart from being psychologically damaged. I was preserved in love, and I began to understand that God doesn't always remove us from our situation the way we may expect or pray for, but He is here with us, and He does care, and He does love us so much, so much. And He wants to show that to you, and He wants us to share that with others, and He wants us to give us, He wants us to give all of who we are to Him, and He will guard our heart. He will guard your heart. And someday we will feel that love and light and music around us when we are reunited with our Heavenly Father in heaven. And I pray today that you would experience his love. And this verse, awake, O sleeper, arise from the dead, and may Christ's light shine on you. And I'm also remembered of the fig tree with Nathaniel in John chapter 1, when Nathaniel was praying under the fig tree, and then he met Jesus for the first time, and Jesus said, I saw you under the fig tree. And I believe that's what God was telling me in that dream, is that I see you when you pray and worship and behind the garage. I see you crying out to me, and I know, and I care, and I'm there for you. And that moment in my dream has carried me through some difficult times in life, where I've looked back and thought, no, the Lord knows, the Lord cares, the Lord sees, and he is the Lord who sees. And that is my testimony. And if you have been touched by that and it's meaningful to you, please like the video, and may others hear it after that. Thank you.